Yeah, that's not what you want out of a pickup truck.
Look, we all love trucks. Rolling around in a pickup has become an American pastime. Heck, the F-150 is the best-selling vehicle here in America, so you've definitely ridden in one. And chances are, at some point in your life, you're gonna need one. A truck, not specifically an F-150.
Or you could do like the rest of the world and just use a van. But not here. In this country, the pickup truck is the king. They're tough, rugged, ultra-capable workhorses that millions of people literally rely on to be able to do their jobs. And these days, they're just as comfortable and functional on roads as family vehicles as they are off roads hauling gravel or hay or being used as mobile swimming pools.
However, not all trucks are created equally, and today, we're coming at you with some that are powered by engines you should avoid at all costs.
My name's Trav, this is Idealist, let's get into it. Ford's Triton series of the modular V8s are a mess. They sludge up easily, exhaust manifold studs like to break themselves off for no particular reason, and oh yeah, the spark plug issue.
It's a 5.4-liter single or dual overhead cam V8, depending on configuration. That makes anywhere from as little as 195 horsepower clear on up to over 550 when fitted with the supercharger and bolted into the totally ideal Ford GT. Seeing as this video is about truck engines though, and no, cars like the Mustang and the GT didn't use the exact same lump of disappointment from the blue oval that they fitted to the pickups.
I'm convinced that if Ford didn't have such strong brand loyalty and by far the most appealing corporate fleet terms, the 2004 through 2009-ish F-150s would have, well, not sank the company, but certainly should have bumped them into at least second place for America's best-selling pickup.
The sludge problem seemed to plague most of them, especially when following the manufacturer's oil change interval.
You know, like you're supposed to. That causes the oil passages in the block and the cylinder heads to plug up because they're too small, which results in top-end damage, including but not limited to the camshaft phasers failing, timing chains and tensioners wearing out and failing, and the cams themselves grinding themselves flat.
The biggest problem with all that is once they're plugged up, there's no real good way to clean it out, making even a full rebuild not a great option. Full engine replacement is sort of the only way, and it's not like they updated the passages, so you're buying a brand new engine that will very likely, eventually, have the same exact problem.
Then there's the issue of the spark plugs. The earlier engines had a spark plug design that didn't engage enough of the threads to the cylinder head, causing the plugs to literally blow themselves out of the engine, while driving down the road.
The fix? Ford redesigned the plugs, going to a two-piece design that held two bits of the thing together with ceramic. Which might have been okay, except now the spark plug threads engaged with the cylinder head so well that they'd seize themselves right in. And when you went to try to remove it, that ceramic joint, yeah, it would happily snap itself off, leaving you with a broken spark plug stuck in the head with no way to remove it without drilling the thing out.
It was such a big problem that Ford had to develop their own special tool to drill the things out and repair the threads. And for a good long while, there were mobile mechanics who set up successful businesses doing nothing but driving around with the special Ford tool and performing the plug extraction. And people still couldn't get enough of the F-150. The Ecodiesel. This is an engine that's had a turbulent history.
When the Chrysler Group sent out to plunk a diesel engine in their smallest full-size pickup, instead of going with their long-term partner Cummins, they opted instead to use an engine builder they'd also been working with for their Jeep products, VM Motori. The Italian-based engine maker has a long and storied history of building actually some really great powertrains that's rooted all the way back in 1947. VM knows how to build an engine properly. they've supplied powertrains for brands like GM, Alfa Romeo, Ford, Hyundai, and even the London Taxi. And that's not counting the numerous marine and defense programs they've held over the years.
But when it came time to develop the lump eventually used in Chrysler's light-duty hardware in the mid-2000s, something went wrong.
It all started with the CRD, used, here in the States anyway, in the Jeep Liberty. That engine has a bunch of its own problems, but the one we're focusing on today is the 3-liter V6 that came after it. VM Motori was right in the middle of development of this all-new engine in collaboration with GM for a European planned Cadillac, when GM went bankrupt.
So, fellow Italian engine builder Fiat swooped in and bought the design for pennies on the dollar. Not a great investment, as it turns out. The second generation, now co-developed with Fiat, a car company synonymous with reliability, was plopped into Rams and Jeeps starting in 2014. And it got instantly famous for all the right reasons. It won countless awards for build quality, customer satisfaction, and fuel economy. It even found its way onto Ward's 10 best engines list more than once, which is no small feat.
It's now on its third and likely last generation, because even with all the praise, it's had more than its fair share of problems, including, but not limited to, oil cooler failure, EGR cooler failure, slipping camshaft gears, timing chain failure, and a number of them left the factory with contaminated engine blocks, causing complete engine failure at relatively low mileage. It happened to one of my best friends, actually. And that's all before you get into the emissions scandal that resolved with a software update that decreased fuel mileage and performance, and completely nerfed throttle behavior.
This one's tough, because there are a lot of upsides to owning one of these, fuel mileage included. But if it were my money, I'd have to save a bit more and go for a truck with the 3rd gen. They're still not perfect. So far, they seem much better. Alright, I'm just gonna come right out and say it. The 5-cylinder used in the Colorado and Canyon is just straight up junk. It might be one of the worst engines on the list. That is, if the last one on this list didn't exist. They have misfire problems that aren't often solved by simply replacing spark plugs and ignition coils. Nope! Instead, fuel injectors fail. Or worse, the valve seat just plain wears out.
If it's the valve seat problem, you're looking at complete cylinder head replacement. And since it's a timing chain engine, that's no small task. The valve seat issue apparently only affects the early engine design though, internally labeled the L52, and they reimagined the engine just a few short years later as the LLR. That made more power, and is allegedly much better, but reported repairs have been a bit of a mixed bag, with timing chain issues, oiling issues, and various electrical problems.
Personally, one I'd probably just avoid. Go for the later Colorado with the V6 instead. In all honesty, this has got to be my pick for the worst engine on this list. The 2003 through 2007 Ford Super Duty diesels are an absolute nightmare to own. And yes, I know there'll be a bunch of diesel guys in the comments shouting about how awesome they are once they're bulletproofed and all that. Look, no engine that needs that many repairs, modifications, and upgrades just to make reliable is worth your time. We could do an entire video on this lump, but just talking about it is sort of making me angry.
In fairness, if you bought one new, didn't abuse it, never tuned it, and followed the service schedule like it was your religion, your ownership experience might have been okay. But almost none of them were left alone. And most of them were worked really hard, because, you know, it's a big, beefy, full-size pickup, literally built to work hard.
Except apparently, this one wasn't.
The head gaskets fail because the torque-to-yield head studs stretch and sometimes break. The fuel injector control module, or FICM, that's responsible for activation of the oil control solenoids for the fuel injectors, fails, in no small part because Ford mounted it to the side of the valve cover.
Sensitive electronics love massive temperature swings and crazy vibration, right? Nope. This can result in a no start, rough running, or hard start condition due to the excessive current drawn by the glow plugs, which also fail.
The engine oil cooler fails and mixes coolant with oil. The EGR cooler fails and mixes exhaust with coolant, which results in symptoms similar to the head gasket, which you might have as well. The injectors fail. The high pressure oil pump fails. The turbocharger fails. And let me tell you, they are not cheap or easy to replace. In fact, nothing on this engine is. This is frankly a terrible engine.
So good thing Ford learned their lesson with the replacement, the 6.4. Except nope, it wasn't great either. Not as fix or repair daily-y, though. The 4.7 liter V8 that Dodge stuffed in everything from Jeeps to the Dakota and Durango to even the Ram 1500 wasn't necessarily terrible. It did have its share of problems though.
The press-fit valve seats drop off the cylinder head and cause misfires. Rocker arms have a habit of just falling off, lifters fail and get noisy, and once again, the oil passages were too small. So being lax on oil change intervals would typically cause a sludge problem that, like the Triton engines, there was no simple fix for. And when it was paired with the 1500 Ram at the time, it was underpowered, bad on mileage, and didn't tow a whole lot.
That being said, I personally owned one in a Dakota for 6 years, and it was dead reliable, even at 184,000 miles. Sure, the lifters were a little noisy on cold starts, and it did need a water pump and thermostat and battery, but overall, it wasn't a terrible engine. Not for me anyway. In fact, I sort of miss that truck. Okay, another quick one. GM's V8 engines equipped with cylinder deactivation are in theory really cool. In practice though, they've got issues, boys.
Overall, they're actually pretty good. But that cylinder deactivation system is riddled with costly problems. The control valves fail, the lifters themselves fail, and they're known to break pushrods. Normally, not a huge problem with a pushrod engine, since typically you just remove the valve cover and the rocker arm and you're there, right? Not with these. The lifters and pushrods are not serviceable without removing the cylinder head. It's not completely the end of the world or anything, but it will set you back several $1,000s to fix.
The trucks themselves had their issues, but so do trucks from every other manufacturer, including Nissan. When Nissan decided to take a bigger piece of the full-size truck pie with the Titan, they did so by making some pretty smart moves. On the surface, the Titan was a decent enough truck, and the move to enlist the help of Cummins for a diesel version seemed to make a lot of sense. After all, Cummins engines are the best in the biz, right? Not this one.
From turbocharger failures, DPF and DEF failures, and high pressure fuel pump failures, to the trucks constantly attempting forced regeneration, not only sapping power, but draining your fuel economy like crazy. Overall reliability was so bad that Nissan was buying a large number of them back with little to no resistance.
We used one as a tow pig for a little over a year, and our experience wasn't great. To this day, Nissan still doesn't have a fix for several customer complaints on these things. And it seems like if you've got one, you're just kind of stuck with it. Now, I've got it on good authority from a contact over at Cummins that while the 90-degree 5-liter V8 isn't necessarily a bad engine, it's certainly the only one they sell that he personally wouldn't own. Do with that what you will. Honorable mention time, baby, and this one is gonna leave some folks triggered. It's the 3-liter V6 found in the late 80s and early 90s Toyota trucks, the 3VZE. Okay, so as I've stated in videos in the past, this engine isn't really all that bad when it comes to reliability. It has two relatively major problems, but for a lot of people, the issues never reveal themselves before the whole truck rots away after several 100,000 miles.
They can blow head gaskets, and they can burn up exhaust valves. But by far and away, the biggest problem with this one comes down to the way it drives. In my opinion, it doesn't make enough low-end torque, and since it doesn't like to rev, what power it's got isn't readily accessible. It doesn't sound particularly good, and it doesn't get particularly great mileage. Lastly, I can't stand working on them. But that's all just my opinion. Millions of people all over the world love these things, and if you're one of them, more power to you. It's just not for me.
There it is, our list of the worst truck engines of all time. Let us know what we missed, or let us know what we got wrong. Also, what are some of the other worst of topics you'd like to see me cover? Go check out some of the Idealist videos right over here, or watch whatever YouTube recommends for you right over here. Thanks for watching, people. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more Ideal content. This is Trav, this has been Ideal, and I'll see you all next time.